Blog Talk Radio.
Are you ready for the summer? Are you ready for the sunshine? Are you ready for the fresh and beans, the apple trees, and a whole lot of food? Are you ready for the summer? Are you ready for the hot nights? Are you ready for the fireflies, the moon stars, and a whole lot of food? No more petrol, no more rush, no more teachers, dirty looks, no more dance and history. Summertime is free. Are you ready for the summer? Are you ready for the good times? Are you ready for the summertime in the sun like summer rain? No more petrol.
You know, I've rarely been quite as aggravated with a season as I have with the summer of the year 2016. For the simple reason that for now and for all time, in my mind, until it begins to deteriorate and until the next life when such things become infinitely less important, I will forever associate this summer, this 4 to 6 month stretch of time for the purposes of film review, with quite possibly the single worst spate of movies I have ever seen in this condensed a period of time in my entire life. And I hope you all have at least been able to enjoy our reviews of them, because otherwise I am at a severe loss here, guys. I really, really am. Anyway, I'm Robert Winfrey, and this is the Radulich and Broadcasting Network Movie Review Podcast. I'm here with the relentlessly optimistic, to the point where occasionally I wonder just how many contact highs he got at metal concerts when he was a young man. Mark, how many of those did you have? Because
Contact highs? Or how many concerts?
Yeah. Contact highs at metal concerts.
Maybe one that I could possibly remember, because you got to remember these are fairly big places. It's not like I was walking into places besides the closets, and they weren't all filled with pot. I will tell you that I did get my very first contact high was I think was referred to as a clam bake, which was I went out with a group of girls. Some of them were related, sister, little sister, and I got in the car with them, and they all proceeded to smoke pot, and I was a bit of a square and didn't smoke pot, but they were like, let's see how high we can get him through a clam bake, which was they rolled up the windows, they made sure there was no air in the car, and they proceeded to smoke a lot of pot.
All right. That's a long way around of saying your relentless optimism is simultaneously impressive to me and makes me question the amount of functioning brain cells you have, much the same way that my relentless pessimism in most cases is indicative of a lot of my own personal issues. But Mark Radulich is here. How you doing, Mark?
I have to resist calling you a robot in frustration at times.
By all means, do so.
Hey, look, something bad has happened to that black woman over there on Twitter. And Robert Winfrey says, does not compute. And I have to say, stop it, you robot.
I freely acknowledged I am somewhere between a quarter and a half robot, as a general rule. And that fluctuating percentage also coincides. It's a zero-sum balance with my nihilism. So I'm anywhere between 50% and 25% robot, or 50% and 25% nihilist on any given day.
I'm doing okay. I'm pulling myself out of the muck and mire of my own nonsense, and I'm moving on. And I'm in a decent mood tonight. Playing some Star Wars Angry Birds on the Xbox. However, I have to say, and we're going to get right into it with Ghostbusters, because not since the last needless uproar around a silly movie have I been this disgusted with humanity. And I understand there are more important things in life than movies and trolls and internet hate and celebrities being attacked on Twitter and all of that. Much more important things. And I don't always know. I don't always know what's going on. But for the most part, there is real life stuff happening that is more important than all of this. But that said, I have managed most of my internet adult life to stay away from a lot of the internet. Like, I don't go on Reddit. I don't go on. I tend to stay away from a lot of the comment boards as such because I don't want to be exposed to the sort of red hot hatred that comes from somebody who will suffer no consequences for acting inhumane or saying ridiculous things. I've been good at getting away from all that, and by virtue of this podcast and some of the other ones that I've done, I've been forced into some of the thick of some of this stuff, and I don't like it, sir. I don't like it at all. I want to go back to my nice, comfortable, I have no clue what's happening on the internet. I don't know what an emoji is. I don't know nothing. Just, I want to stick my head back in the sand and pretend you people don't exist. I was happier that way.
I'm sure you were. All right. Coincidentally, my does not compute. The does not compute thing that Mark referenced, we're going to get into a little bit later in the show. And I do wish to kind of explain both to him and to all of you what that was about. We're going to do the show a little different tonight, in large part because there's not a whole lot to talk about when it comes to this movie. For those of you looking forward to Mark and I spending an hour yelling at each other, probably not going to happen. We agreed weeks before this movie actually came out that we were just going to wind up agreeing to disagree in all probability. Again, that was our projection. Then we both saw the movie, and yup, we have reached cross paths. Rather than yell at each other pointlessly about my opinion is better than your opinion or my perspective, I feel this way, no, I feel this way, well, screw you because my feelings are more valid. No, we're not doing that. Not going to happen tonight. There's no point to it. We both acknowledge this. We are both going to express our feelings on the film, our analysis of the film. If there's any major points that we have severe contention on, we're going to briefly discuss them rationally and with plenty of respect towards each other's perspectives and opinions. And then at the end of it, we're going to, again, metaphorically shake hands, agree to disagree, and we're going to move on to talk about what is infinitely more interesting than this cinematic piece of crap, the sociological response to it, which is, again, so much more interesting than a generic and really, really bad comedy. And you've already got a little preview of how I felt about this. So again, we're not going to get in where there's not going to be, verbal fisticuffs. We've both kind of decided that this movie is not worth that much interpersonal strife, even if it's just, for the purposes of this podcast. It's just not worth it. So you're going to get our perspectives. We're going to debate a little bit about it. I'm going to talk a little bit about how the movie could have been made better. Because it's one of the things Mark pointed out. If I'm going to criticize a movie for being bad, I really should be able to come up with at least one way, or, how could you have improved it? How could you have made it better? And so I thought about it, and I came up with a few, and I read a couple of other reviews, and I thought some of them had good ideas and good points, and some of them were crap. And that's not just...
And this is beyond the old Homer Simpson, be more funny. That's not what he means.
Well, partially, yes. Your movie is fundamentally unfunny, and shame on all of you for that, but I'm not just going to shout that over and over again and pretend that's a legitimate form of criticism or a constructive piece of advice. It's just not. So that's how we're going to kind of do this going forward. We're going to have, the usual segments. We're going to talk about the finances of this. I'm going to yell at Sony for being a bunch of desperate, sad sacks of human fecal matter. Because seriously, we're going to yell at other reviewers. Because, look, Mark found a guy last week who almost gave me an aneurysm on air. It was hilarious to those around me. I'm not quite sure if I'm going to be able to top that this week. But if there's any movie, or more importantly, any critical response to a movie that might elicit a similar reaction to some sad piece of crap like we talked about last week, it might be this one. So, at his own request, Mark is going to do the plot synopsis this week. I imagine he didn't want me sneaking in snarky comments every 5 seconds, even though I've been trying my best to curtail that. So, Mark, I will completely shut up while you do this, and give us the synopsis of this thing.
All right. Our movie starts. I'm not going to go totally like scene for scene, beat by beat. I kind of want to cover this overall, but we do start in a tour of an old New York City house. The tour guide's telling people about it. He starts talking about the ghosts. It's as the scene moves on, it goes from a gag to there's really a ghost in there. That brings up the title, and we then shift to the heart of the film. The character who sort of the whole thing sort of emotionally rests on, Kristen Wiig's Erin Gilbert. She is an estranged partner of the other star of this film, Melissa McCarthy's Abby Yates. When they were younger, they wrote a book together about ghosts. She has since distanced herself from ghosts and the paranormal, and she has pursued a career of strict science in the field of physics. She has devoted herself to professionalism and science and the scientific method, and that has gotten her near tenured at Columbia. That is where we find her. She has put aside childish things, but this is essentially her character. She's put aside childish things, and she is striving to be the best professional that she can, and she has just about reached the pinnacle of her professional career when suddenly all the stuff about ghosts starts coming back to her life. For one thing, we find Ed Begley Jr. as Ed Mulgrave comes to her and says, "Hey, this house is haunted. We just found out about this. Can you come and help us?" And she says, "Well, how did you find out about me, and why are you bringing this to my attention?" "Well, you wrote this book." "Holy shit, how did the book end up on the internet again?" And that brings her in contact with Abby Yates. So as Erin Gilbert, Kristen Wiig, has abandoned the paranormal, Abby Yates has thrown herself full throttle into it. She has accepted it. It is the meaning of her life. It is her life's work that she is devoting herself to. And that brings her in direct conflict with Erin Gilbert because she's republishing the book. She's continually talking about it, and that's bringing unwanted attention towards Kristen Wiig's character. What forces them together in this conflict is that there is in fact a ghost at this house. So they go along with her new partner, played by Kate McKinnon, who is an engineer, I would believe a nuclear engineer named Jillian Holtzman. The three of them go to see if this ghost is real. They find out that it is when I believe the phrase was ecto projectiles all over Erin Gilbert, Kristen Wiig. She proceeds to yell into a camera, "Ghosts are real." Video goes up on YouTube. Tenured position is out the window. She's now that whole track that she was on is now gone. She's sort of stuck, back in. While she's been validated in the sense, and this is going to happen throughout the film, the need for validation, the taking away of validation, the regaining of validation, the subsequent taking it away again. So while on the one hand, she's lost her professional career, on the other, her belief in the paranormal has been validated by this experience with this ghost. Let me stop there and talk about the villain. The plot of this movie is that we have a guy named Rowan North, played by Neil Casey, who is building devices. These devices are amplifying ghosts in particular areas. He's laying them out in a pattern called ley lines so that when they all are activated, they will open up they will open up the ghost dimension. An army of ghosts will come out. He will kill himself. He will become a ghost, and he will lead a ghost army and destroy New York City. This is what we find out throughout the course of the film. What we start with, though, is just a series of weird devices left around the city that are causing more powerful ghosts to exist than they were before. So, for example, being the ghost of the woman in the house that vomits on Kristen Wiig wouldn't have been as powerful without said machine. Okay? So that brings us to Leslie Jones's character, Patty Tolan, because the second device and the second ghost that we see is an electrocuted prisoner. She is a amateur scholar of New York City history. She's also an MTA toll booth, an MTA subway booth worker. And she happens to see Rowan North go into the subway. She goes after him. She sees the ghost of an executed prisoner. It's an executed prisoner because above the subway used to be a prison where they executed people, which he talks about. So you've got now back to our three main characters. They have decided that after their experience with the ghost and the subsequent loss of not only Kristen Wiig's job, but when they go to ask for more money and more funding and whatnot to bring Kristen Wiig in, Melissa McCarthy and Kate McKinnon are both fired from their job as well. So they take their equipment. They decide, well, with nothing left to lose and nothing else to have, why don't we try? And with this idea that they can actually trap a ghost, which they talk about, they say, hey, let's take this idea that you have about trapping a ghost, and let's go and actually do it. Let's attempt to find and trap ghosts. They go and they end up they can't rent the old firehouse, which is sort of a throwback to the first movie. So they end up in above a Chinese food restaurant, the same Chinese restaurant that apparently Melissa McCarthy gets her lunch from, which is a running gag throughout the movie.
Well, it's a running gag inducer.
It's a running gag throughout the movie. So now we have Patty, who has seen the ghost. She goes to seek out, I'll just for this point call them Ghostbusters, although that's not that they haven't even adopted that as a name yet. But for the sake of this summary, she goes and seeks out the Ghostbusters and says, hey, I saw a ghost in the subway tunnel. Come and help me. So they take some of the new equipment that Kate McKinnon has developed to shoot at, weaken, and trap a ghost. They take it into the subway with them. They see the same ghost that she saw. They test the equipment. The equipment doesn't work quite as well as it should. They are nearly killed by a train, and the ghost ends up escaping. Not before they are all slimed, by the way. I thought they could destroy the ghost in that sequence, but the way that she made it sound like when Leslie Jones says the ghost is going to be the third scariest thing on that subway car, I was like, okay, I guess the ghost got away. In any case,
they also showed it in the final. It's actually in the window of the caboose on that train as it speeds down the tunnel.
Right. Okay. So the equipment doesn't work quite as good. It's good first start, but not good enough to trap the ghost. And subsequently, Kristen Wiig is slimed for a second time in this movie. They go back. Now, what happens from this point on in the movie is Leslie Jones joins the team. They hire Chris Hemsworth as the dumb blonde secretary, which I'm not going to get too into. I mean, there's a lot of gags, there's a lot of jokes, there's a lot of funny stuff that happens with him, but it's not worth. It doesn't really add to the plot until the end of the movie. So, like I said, Leslie Jones as Patty Tolan joins the team, and she brings and she brings with her a hearse that she borrows from her uncle, who turns out to be Ernie Hudson. Kate McKinnon develops more stuff. There's a lot of sequences in the movie of them testing out the equipment, the evolution. It evolves from scene to scene, where it starts off with one thing, and then she makes an improvement, and it becomes better, and it becomes better. And it's a lot of physical humor, especially with Melissa McCarthy being bounced around by this unstable equipment. A lot of gags about the equipment in the movie. This the third ghost sequence, and the first official as a 4-unit Ghostbusters team brings them to the Stone Street Theater, I believe. Kind of looks like Irving Plaza. There's a metal concert going on there. This is where Ozzy Osbourne does his cameo. A ghost is loose at this metal show. There's an extended sequence of them running down this ghost. They discover a third machine, the third amplifying machine. They finally chase this ghost into the main auditorium. This everyone has seen. You've seen the commercial. You've seen the bit where Melissa McCarthy stage dives one way. Leslie Jones attempts to stage dive and does the whole, I don't know if it's a race thing or a lady thing. It's a race thing. But I'm mad as hell. So the ghost perches itself on her shoulder. They shoot the thing. They trap it. And in one of the funniest lines of the movie, Kate McKinnon yells out, "We got a ghost in a box!" So they now successfully have weakened and trapped a ghost for the first time in a movie. This is the high point of the movie for the team. They have been validated to the nth degree. They have succeeded in the one thing that has eluded them up to this point, being able to trap the damn thing. They are wildly celebrated at this show. And just as soon as that happens, the mayor shows up, or they are asked to go see the mayor, and they are told, knock it off. You can't be telling people about ghosts. You can't be ghost busting. You know, you are too high profile. You're going to cause a panic. This is the same beat as in Men in Black. You know, individual people are easy to reason with. Groups of people, go insane, kind of logic. So the mayor's whole thing is, hey, we know what's happening. We are trying to do something about it. Please don't get in the way. So validation sought and received, validation taken away. This will happen a few more times throughout the movie. They go back to their headquarters. The character that Bill Murray plays is Martin Heiss. He's a ghost debunker. He shows up, basically says, "Show me the ghost." And in a scene reminiscent of the original, where Walter Peck says, "Show me how your machinery works," Kristen Wiig has a lapse of sanity, driven by the fact that she has once again been invalidated and can't, and she'll talk about why in one of the forthcoming scenes. She opens up the box, the trap, and lets the ghost out. The ghost then proceeds to kill Bill Murray. I actually told this out of order. That happens first, then they go see the mayor. But apologies. Thank you for not correcting me. Seriously, just letting me get through this. I believe the next thing that happens with them, and again, they're still continuing to evolve. Now she's building different weapons, like a ghost chipper and, 2 ghost sidearms and a ghost shotgun and all this fun stuff. And there's more fun in the alley where they blow up the shitty delivery guy's motorcycle. They start to figure out that what Rowan is doing. And let me talk about Rowan for a second. Rowan is a disaffected genius who has decided that humanity must be cleansed of its terribleness and destroyed via this army of ghosts. So, we've seen this before.
You now devoted more time and thought to that character than anyone associated with the movie did.
Well, it was a character. Can't tell me it wasn't. So you have this disaffected genius who is tired of humanity, who has felt shit on all his life, and has decided that he's angry and he's not going to take it anymore. And he develops this plan to lead an army of ghosts to destroy the city. So they figure out what he's doing. They have figured out where all of the different devices are. which lead them to the Mercado Hotel. They go and confront him. They think they've backed him into a corner. He actually executes the next part of his plan, which is essentially to commit suicide and become a ghost. This, in effect, allows him to start possessing people. He first possesses Melissa McCarthy. This is the scene you've seen in the trailer where she throws Kate McKinnon out the window, and the power of Patty compels her to stop, and she gets punched in the face. That whole sequence. Chris Hemsworth shows up and says, "I want to be a Ghostbuster." You saw this in the trailer as well. He is then possessed. And for the remainder of the movie, Chris Hemsworth is your villain. He goes back to the main device. He turns it on, opens up the vortex. Out come the ghosts. We are into our final sequence. Some little things here and there I probably skipped, but for the most part, this is all you really need to know. So he executes his final plan. The ghosts are everywhere. The cops come, try to stop him. He freezes them all. They thankfully cut the dance number out of the movie. You can see it in the credits, but there's supposed to be an extended song and dance number. All they do is do kind of a Saturday Night Live pose, a Saturday Night Fever pose, and that's all you see. This leads to the 4 women fighting the ghosts in the street, house to house, like a terrorist operation, an anti-terror operation. This is an elongated action sequence as they use the various armaments that Kate McKinnon has developed. Kate McKinnon has a very cool action sequence where she uses her dual pistols to zap a bunch of ghosts. There's a sequence that I actually had a huge laugh about where Slimer steals their car, which they say has a nuclear device on top of it. Later on, when we start talking about why I like this movie, I can get into what exactly was said that I thought was so funny. But Slimer steals the car and goes for a joyride. He ends up picking up other ghosts along the way, which becomes an ongoing gag throughout this whole sequence. Kristen Wiig shows up. She saves them from being squished by a ghost balloon Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Once they have finished with all of the, we'll call them pawn ghosts, the small army of ghosts that attack them, then they go after Rowan. There's an exchange, the Bit Force, where they're trying to get him to abandon Chris Hemsworth's body, and so they can take him back and save him, which he finally does. And then there's an exchange between him and Leslie Jones that goes something like, what form would you like me to take? Look like something cute. How about your logo? Yeah, that's nice. And then he becomes the logo and then grows the logo into a huge monster. Again, reminiscent of the first movie, little forced, but whatever. This is the big final action sequence. He's a huge monster and he's wrecking the city a la Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. They decide that if they can shoot the car with the nuclear device and send it into the portal, it'll close the portal. They go ahead and they do that. They shoot the nuclear device. It causes the portal to reverse, and then it's creating a giant trap. All the ghosts get sucked back into it again, including Melissa McCarthy. She gets sucked back in, and in a payoff to an earlier conversation in the movie where the Abby Yates character had felt that the Aaron Gilbert character had abandoned her to pursue her science profession, absent of the paranormal. She says, "I'm not going to abandon you this time." She hooks herself to the thing, and she jumps into the hole, and she pulls her out, and she saves her. And for whatever reason, their hair is white when it's all over. Once again, the mayor says, "Hey, we appreciate you. Please do what you're doing in secret. Here's a lot of money." They move into the firehouse, fully funded by the mayor, as long as they're discreet. And, what am I missing here? And the last thing that happens, I believe, is that they're listening to a recording and they hear the words Zool. And I believe that's all. Did I miss anything important?
You know, your summation was generally more interesting than that actual movie, and I still struggled to stay awake.
Thanks, I think.
It's intended as a compliment.
Let me first say, I'm not a huge fan of Melissa McCarthy. I liked her well enough on Mike and Mindy when I watched the show. I only watched it for about 2 or 3 seasons, and then it got a little. They made the character a little too crazy when she quit teaching and decided to be a stay-at-home writer. But even on that show, her thing was less jokes and delivery and more physical humor, because fat people falling down the stairs is infinitely funny.
Anyone falling down the stairs is funny. Let's be clear about that.
But I have, people have been likening Melissa McCarthy to Adam Sandler because her pictures her pictures are cheaply made and end up doing relatively
Ponzi
well.
schemes.
I would also compare her to like Chris Farley, who was probably an interesting comedian, but made his bread and butter on the fact that he was fat. He was fat and he used it to do physical comedy. She is kind of the same way. And there's a lot of that in the movie, especially when it comes to testing out the equipment, as I said earlier. But the 3 times in the movie that I actually had a vocal out loud belly laugh, just one of those guffaws, and she's the only one that really got it out of me. That's why I'm saying it wasn't like I was ready for it because I was a huge fan. I was surprised she was as funny as she was. When Slimer steals the car and Kate McKinnon points out that there's a nuclear device on top of it, she goes, "Well, we just gave the ghost a nuke. I guess we better run." And I howled both. I saw the movie twice. I howled both times. And then later on, when Slimer picks up the female Slimer and the other ghosts that are hanging on all the 1950s, and she just deadpan looks at the camera and goes, "Well, that thing's having the time of its life." Dude, I laughed again. And in the after credit scene where, the joke had been that the Chinese food store would get their order wrong or does a shitty job with it. She has a big thing of I only got 1 wonton in my soup. That's an ongoing gag. At the very end, she gets a container just overstuffed with wontons as an appreciation for what the Ghostbusters did. And she's like, "Look, I'm just looking for an appropriate wonton to soup ratio. This is madness." And I'm sorry, I know that sounds stupid, but I'm laughing now. I think it's funny. As far as I'll shut up after this so you can get a word in edgewise here. As far as the humor goes, Kristen Wiig is pretty dry throughout this thing. She's the emotional heart of the thing. It's her arc. She's the ghost girl that needs the validation most of all. And she, but she doesn't get a lot of humor as such. Kate McKinnon, however, as Jillian Holtzman, who doesn't have a lot of dialogue, but is all facial expression and body movement, is fucking hilarious throughout this thing. And many critics said that her and Chris Hemsworth stole the movie. I would agree, especially with her. Anytime she was on screen, I was into it. As far as Leslie Jones goes, just really quick, I know someone wrote on my Facebook page, well, that's what you get when you play a stereotype. This may or may not sound racist, but Leslie Jones sounded like most black people I've met, most educated, and by that I mean high school and probably college. Educated, everyday, normal, working class black folks speak the way that she spoke in the movie. I don't understand how that's a stereotype. Maybe that makes me sound silly, but to me,
no, I agreed with your assessment there. The points wherein she becomes a stereotype all got shoved into the trailer and are consequently completely unfunny. But beyond that, she's just a normal person.
Yeah. When she needed to deliver exposition or important dialogue, she did what any normal person would do. She smartened up a bit. But when she was just talking as herself and being jovial or whatever, she talked like a normal person. And that's what she was, and she was fine. She
was the only person approaching normal or behaving like an actual person in the entirety of this film.
You and I are going to then argue over Jillian Holtzman, aren't we? But I have
You have
an
no
answer.
idea what you're in for.
So that's just the short thing. I enjoyed some of the lines of Melissa McCarthy. They toned her down a lot from the trailer, which I thought was good. Kristen Wiig, she was pretty much the straight man in this thing. Jillian Holtzman was all physical acting, and Leslie Jones lent herself well to the cast. I don't really have anything good or bad or indifferent to say about her. And Chris Hemsworth played a moron. I'm going to stop there and let you kind of butt in with your thoughts, at least on the cast.
I don't really have anything good to say.
Now's the time.
Chris Hemsworth has one or two moments of legitimately amusing either physical comedy or delivered dialogue. But I always find the moronic but good-looking receptionist or secretary trope good for one laugh or so a movie. I didn't laugh at anything in this movie, mind you, but the general sense of amusement. Doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman, if you have the attractive secretary being stupid, you can usually find one, almost always, point of amusement. And then it just gets tired and old. And that's true regardless of the gender involved. Trying to remember what it was, because there was something.
Either of the coffee bits, which he does twice.
No.
Was it when he held his eyes because something was too loud?
Yeah, okay, that one was... No, what amused me about that was not when he put his hands over his eyes when they told him don't listen, but rather 20 seconds later when something loud breaks into the room, his default response is actually to cover his eyes.
I like his explanation for, my glasses kept getting dirty, so I just took the lenses out.
It might have been his discussion of his dog.
My cat.
I think that one actually, I kind of grinned at that one because it's, and look, I generally don't care for physical comedy. It's too stupid. I'm not saying I won't laugh if someone falls down the stairs. Of course I will. But the majority of physical comedy in film is just overblown and stupid, and I just want to leave. I spent the entirety of this film fighting the urge to walk out. Kate McKinnon was not amusing. She's every generic, crazy-haired, wild-eyed, socially awkward mad scientist throughout the history of storytelling in any medium. There's nothing original. There's nothing amusing there at all. All of the theoretical comedy in this film feels like it was... This does not feel like a movie that was actually written. I don't think whoever got the screenplay credit deserved it. Someone watched the original Ghostbusters, structured sequences to vaguely follow in line with that, put these idiots on screen and said improv.
I'll give you this. There's some of that, but there was some of that in the original too. If you think
at
they
least
wrote,
those guys were funny.
Somebody's coming. Whoa, somebody's coming.
Well, here's my thing about that. There's a difference between... I think there's a fundamental difference between an acting choice that, only an actor will make in a scene and not even scripting out dialogue. I genuinely feel there are huge stretches of this movie that were not written. Paul Feig sat everybody down in front of a camera and said, do stuff. Didn't even tell them what to do, just stuff.
I'm not going to argue with you there because I've actually read where I believe that happened. I don't know if it's as much as you're making it out to be, but there were definitely sequences where he was like, I have 3, I believe, actresses from Saturday Night Live and the most famous female comic actor currently working in film today. Let me give them a platform for which to do their thing. So I don't think it says on page 58, and then Jillian Holtzman starts to dance seductively at Kristen Wiig. I think it was okay. Hey, we want to do a scene where you're kind of messing with Kristen, and we're gonna play some music. Just listen to the music and do your thing. She came up with the rest of it on her own. I'm pretty sure they let the Mike Hat thing was Chris Hemsworth doing improv.
And it speaks volumes that was the only funny bit of improv they got out of the film. Comes from Chris Hemsworth.
I have to disagree with a lot of what you're saying. I don't know if you're done, but allow me to...
No, but go ahead and if you wish to debate the specifics of my complaining that some 60% of this film was not actually scripted or written or formed in any way before a bunch of people got together on screen, by all means.
All I'm going to say is this. First of all, the first rule of comedy is you must be funny. You didn't find it funny. You're not
a
alone.
Single thing.
Okay, we got it.
I'll do you one better. Hang on. Specifically because if you wish to make the point, and to degrees there is truth behind that point, that the only appreciable metric for a comedic film or television show is did the audience laugh? I took your advice. I counted the number of audience laughs that came out of this movie because I'm not necessarily the fairest barometer for this. I knew I wasn't going to enjoy this movie. None of the humor is in my wheelhouse. This film got less than 10 audience laughs for its entire run.
Okay.
And when I say less than 10, I do not mean 9. I mean 6 or 7. It was pathetic.
The theater I saw it in, there was more laughs going on. And the theater I saw it in was also full. I saw it Friday night. I believe I saw the 7:45 show. And then I saw it again Monday at 11:45 with my daughter. Who's, by the way, I always talk about my daughter's reaction to the movie. She actually yelled at me. You'll find this amusing because it supports your argument that the movie should be burned. But we walked out of it, and she knew going in that she was going to have some trouble with it because she doesn't like scary things, and some of the ghost sequences were, if you're a 5-year-old girl, a little on the scary side, a little intense, and she had a hard time with some of it. But I'll tell you what she didn't have a hard time with. Yeah, well, let me first say, when it was over, I was like, Lily, did you like the movie? And she goes, Daddy, from now on, just take me to nice movies, okay? This was not a nice movie. All right. What did you like about it, Lily? There were scary things in this movie, and they were not nice. I'm like, was there anything that you... And I did notice that during the end sequence where Kate McKinnon is shooting all the ghosts with her sidearms, my daughter was like shadow boxing. She was jumping up and down in her seat, and she was like, yeah, and she kind of like, yeah, get him. She and probably every other little girl on the planet who saw this movie loved that sequence. That was a girl power sequence that kicked ass and looked awesome.
I will not consent to agreeing with either of those points.
I enjoyed it. I liked it. I thought it was great. I thought it was not overly stylized, but just enough.
No, it was overly stylized to the stupid degree, and they had to do it in that obnoxious, terrible-looking CGI. It was irredeemable.
The whole thing with CGI, we're never going to agree on that. If we somehow ever agree on what's funny, we're certainly never going to agree on the CGI, except for maybe The Good Dinosaur. Like I said, I found the Kate McKinnon stuff funny. I was entertained by it. Whatever. The people who have reviewed the movie, for the most part, found her to be the highlight. and found her stuff to be funny. You don't find it funny, that's fine. I'm not arguing that you should. I'm just saying that's one of the things that made me like the movie. Let me shift gears here so that we're not beating dead horses. I said when it was over, I think I preferred this one to the original. And I know that sounds like blasphemy. Bless to you, bless to me, bless for everybody in the world. Little Eddie Izzard for you. Here's why. I was thinking about, I was explaining this to my friend today, because he's another one who isn't going to go see this movie, couldn't be paid to go see it, and wondered
You're better
what's
off
wrong.
not. I can't recommend anyone see this movie under any circumstances. If
And-
you're
and-
to the NSA intern listening to this review, show this movie on a loop to prisoners you wish to confess.
And he, so he called me up. He was like, all right, you've seen the movie now twice. I'm dying to find out why you have such high praise for it as you do. And I explained to him, I was like, I watched the first one recently, and we'll be talking about this more on Long Road to Ruin tomorrow. There's stuff happening with the characters, but it's independent of what the antagonist is doing. And what the antagonist is doing is just happening. There's no rhyme or reason to it. It's just, in this world exists an antenna that is used, that at a certain time, for no discernible reason that I could figure out, will draw Gozer out of another dimension. That's it. That's the movie. If you are not focused on the actual Ghostbusters and their relationship to each other and the story that they're telling themselves, and you just look at, well, what is the plot of this thing? What is the antagonist doing? That's it. There's an antenna that's just waiting for the third act to draw out Gozer. Now, it gets set off by the only actual villain in the movie that does anything, and that's Walter Peck. But what he does is also independent of what's happening with Gozer. Gozer's just waiting around for, quote-unquote, the sign, and the sign is him opening up the containment unit and setting out all the ghosts that they've already trapped. One of the things I liked about this movie was
if you say the villain, I'm going to throw something.
It's what the villain does. The villain himself is basically, I felt like, sort of they took the internet troll and decided we need to actualize this entity into a character, and that's all he is.
Yes, let's take all the fans of the original film, or films in general of this particular nature, and we're going to turn them into the villain to further alienate a massive portion of the audience. Great decision making.
Well, again, not the first time they took an evil genius who's, disenfranchised and decided he's going to take it out on the world. A little stock. I'll give you that.
This entire movie is stock.
Quit yelling at me. It's his plan. I like the layout of his plan. I like the idea of there may have already been ghosts, but they weren't powerful enough to really mess with anybody. He's making them more powerful, and he's doing it in such a way so that there's an end point. That's the thing about this movie. I don't feel like the first one flows as well. I feel like this actually flowed from scene to scene to scene. That things built, and when the conclusion came, when the final third act came about, we got there very naturally. Where if you compare it to the first one, and again, I'll talk about this a little bit more in depth tomorrow. I don't want to spend that much time doing it now. It's just, it builds, but it builds kind of without anything building it. Eventually Zuul gets powerful enough for no discernible reason to possess Dana. And Vince Clortho possesses Rick Moranis, and they get together, the ghosts are unleashed, and out comes Gozer. There's no rhyme or reason to it, though. Everything is laid out nicely. You have a villain, he's doing stuff, he has a motivation. Whether you think that motivation is stock or stupid or whatever else, at least it was there. There's no motivation in the original. other than Gozer.
Yes, because extra-dimensional beings who exist only to destroy require in-depth human relatability motivation.
No, but good screenplays do.
You're going to call this a good screenplay.
I'm going to say at least this villain had a motive. It had motivation to do something. Things aren't just happening out of the ether. That's one of the reasons why I liked it. The other thing I liked about this movie, and again, then you respond after this. The other thing I liked about this movie was there was more time spent on the evolution of the team and their equipment. There's a lot of fun stuff, I think, in those scenes. All of the back alley scenes where they're testing out the equipment, I thought those were all, at the very least, entertaining, if not downright amusing. They weren't all Melissa McCarthy, quote-unquote, wrestling a gator. But, you know, there's some funny stuff that happens. Again, blowing up the motorcycle I thought was actually really funny. And I liked the idea that it's, you know, science is never finished. You know, the projects are never finished. Jillian Holston's babies are never finished. She's always improving on them. You know, we start off with, you know, Erin Gilbert having to wear the neck brace and the thing, and, you know, oh, this doesn't keep you grounded, and then, you know, she shoots the positron glider, and and there's not enough energy, so it so it fails and it falls down. It looks like a limp penis. Ha ha, I get it. You know, she's like, oh, we gotta turn up the juice. And so in the next scene, she's like, I've done this and I've done this and I've done this, and that makes it better. You know, and I liked all of that. Because, again, in the original, they just show up with the gear, and the gear is just kind of there. They use it twice in the whole movie. I like the fact that they made the gear an important part of the story. Next, your problems with all of that.
I'll agree that I didn't mind the aspect of looking at the technology behind it. Suddenly, them sprouting proton packs in the original is a weakness of that movie. Unfortunately, I don't believe that any of those characters had the intellectual capacity or the physical capability to design, execute, or create anything approaching that level of sophistication.
Why?
What do you mean, why?
Well, hang on. It's one character. What is it about Jillian Holtzman that you think that makes her not a believable nuclear engineer?
Well, for one thing, if she were half that good, she'd be employed by the government.
Why?
Because the government does not let people with the capability to create things of that destructive power roam freely. They just don't.
This is falling into the category of it doesn't work that way. Dude, it's a fictional screenplay.
She spouts technobabble, but we never actually see her do anything. And to be fair, that particular complaint about, well, they're supposed to be scientists is much more leveled at Wig and McCarthy, who are written so poorly.
Because I can make the same argument about fucking, what's-his-face, Iron Man. Okay, that whole first movie
by all
is
means,
him
do.
And I don't for a minute believe Robert Downey Jr. is that character. I don't believe he's that smart, but he's playing a character. So you're asked to suspend your disbelief just a little bit.
But the character is shown on screen to be that smart consistently.
But when is she shown to be dumb? She's shown to be having fun. She's shown to be socially awkward. And I'm sorry, I've met plenty of genius-level people who are socially awkward.
I have no problem with her being socially awkward.
I've met genius-level people who act the way that she does. She was pushed.
I'm fine with that, too.
Then what does she do? Was it the munching of the potato chips that bothered you?
That did bother me, yes. Look, I have a fundamental issue with the fact that no one in that movie, with the exception of Patty, reacts the way even an intellectual or a scientist would react under those circumstances.
Well, don't you? But I would contend that the reason why one of them is in love with the paranormal, the other one needed validation from her childhood, being abused by a ghost, and the other one's an engineer. So she's there to make stuff. So her whole, she's not the paranormal expert. She's just the one building shit. That's why it made sense for me at least, for her to be eating the potato chips. She's like, I'm like, yeah, I'm here. I'm here because I'm your partner, but this is your wheelhouse. I'm just here to build a
Can I also, in the realm of that, mention that not since the most recent Transformers movie have I seen such blatant and cringeworthy product placement in the film?
Well, I'm not going to argue with you there, pal. That also doesn't bother me either. They got bills to pay.
Yeah, no kidding. They overspent on this thing, and it's not going to make its money back.
Yeah, well, we're almost there. We're almost to the money. We'll talk about it then. But I respect your opinion. I just think you're being too hard on the Beaver. I think
I have said these same things about other movies. This is simply the barometer with which I judge film. My criticism and my standard does not slide necessarily, dependent on thematic material. And maybe that's a flaw in my analysis. I'll grant that is possible and potentially even probable. I'm not being any harder on this film than I was on Pixels, which is, I think, roughly comparable in terms of quality. And I temporarily lost Mark. He should be connecting back in a minute.
Here I am.
Okay, there's Mark again. Let me remove that one. All right, you still there?
I am here.
Okay.
I was saying that, again, for the purposes of the script and the storytelling, I was fine with the way that they reacted. You have Wig, who is seeking validation because she was abused by a ghost. And she is, abandoned all of this. And as we're talking about the first time she gets slimed, it's that instant validation of, holy shit, all those years of abuse have finally, I was right, there's really a ghost. And then you have this other one who's in love with the paranormal. That's her character. She so much as says it. I don't know, I'm not entirely sure how you, in a movie that's about people, chasing and trapping ghosts, how they're supposed
Which
to
they
act.
do not successfully in this movie.
They trapped one ghost.
And let it go 3 minutes later.
Well,
in a movie called Ghostbusters, they successfully bust not one ghost.
No, they blew up a lot of ghosts. And
they did not blow them up.
Here's where I thought you were going to fight me. That whole end sequence with it throwing ghosts left and right, and some of them are bursting, and
it's terrible. It's fundamentally terrible.
I'll give you this. It's not particularly consistent, because I don't understand how any of their weapons work. At least in the first one.
That's my big gripe with that. It's like, okay, these proton packs are designed to tame. They hold the ectoplasmic material in place.
Well, they weaken it first. So if you go by the rules of the first one, they shoot the positron glider, it weakens the ghost. They adjust the stream so that the next shot it'll hold the ghost. They drag it to the trap, and then the trap takes it in. That's how it's supposed to work. And the rules were fairly consistent in both movies. This one, I don't know.
Until the end, at which point they suddenly begin disintegrating ghosts.
Well, no, I'm saying...
it's not consistent within its own universe, and more importantly, that bloated stupidity of an action sequence is so woefully out of place with the rest of the movie.
Why? It's a summer action flick.
No. It has one action sequence. That does not make it an action movie. If anything, it makes the action sequence stand out and be stupid.
It's a horror comedy action movie, see? It's a summer blockbuster. It's supposed to be big. It's supposed to be a circus. It's supposed to be an extravaganza. How do you not have a big giant action sequence in 2016? I thought it fit well in place. I again, compare it to the original. They're standing there, they shake their positron gliders, they cross streams, and then it's over. And they're covered in goo.
Yeah, who would have thought? In an intellectual comedy that also deals with a bit of science, they use science to overcome it rather than we're going to slow motion walk away from an explosion.
Whatever,
because
man.
it wouldn't have fit in the movie.
No, man. I want to see people.
I don't care what you want. It doesn't fit in the movie.
Sure, it does.
No, it doesn't. It is a radical tonal shift from everything that has occurred up to that point.
The movie was called Ghost Bust 'Em Up. I don't know if you know that or not. It's actually called Ghost Bust 'Em in the Face. I get what you're saying about other people have said that too. They took a movie where science triumphs over the paranormal, over mysticism, and they threw that out, to create Fast and the Furious with ghosts. Except that I don't care. You can care.
I'm well aware that you don't care. It still doesn't fit.
I don't know.
Does not fit.
I feel like building up to a giant action sequence in a movie like this, which wasn't overly intellectual. I don't know if you're right when you say that it doesn't fit. I think it fits closer than you might think. I don't think it fits in the original one.
Fit.
I think that
it doesn't even fit in this one.
Why?
First of all, they suddenly display athleticism on par with a professional free runner.
Okay, only one of them does that.
No, you have Kristen Wiig doing a few things like that as well. And then Kate McKinnon suddenly sprouting parkour powers out of her ass.
Okay, but Kate McKinnon was the only one that did it. What do you call it? Melissa McCarthy doesn't. Melissa McCarthy gets dropped on a car once. Patty, I don't
Which I
remember
really wish had actually killed her character, but...
Stop that. The Patty doesn't do anything particularly, Wonder Woman-ish. I don't remember Kristen Wiig doing anything either. She shoots a ghost with a shotgun and she stabs the safe up.
Oh, she does like a cartwheel or a sideways flip while holding on to one of them without losing concentration and scoring a perfect landing.
Okay. It went by so
it's
fast.
Silly, it's stupid. Some executive mandated an action sequence that does not fit within the rest of the movie, and everyone just kind of smiled and went along with it.
I enjoyed it.
More importantly, it never should have actually reached that point because our villain, lacking any sense of internal consistency, has the ability to freeze and bodily control an entire portion of the U.S. Army that shows up to stop him. But hey, the only people with the actual technologies and capability of doing so, I simply lose my ability to control the human force. Piss off.
I'll give you this. Odd choice by the villain to not have the army turn on the Ghostbusters.
It's not odd. That's stupid on par with, boy, I'll hang out in Siberia and sure hope that these two people I want to manipulate show up at the same time.
What are you referencing?
Your favorite closing sequence from Civil War.
Oh, God.
Him not doing that. Having the capability of actually executing his plan and just not is worse than Daniel Brohl hiding out in a bunker going, please let Iron Man and Captain America show up at the same time so I can play them against each other. It is worse.
Okay. In the interest of time.
There's no debatable point there.
Oh, I'm not debating you. The one thing I'm going to concede in your entire argument is that when it came down to it, and it's not even something I picked up on until you just said it, but you're absolutely right. If you are going to say, Mark, you are not allowed to leave this podcast unless you agree with me on at least one thing, it is at the very end of the movie, I have two problems. You've just now named one of them, which is why doesn't he use the army to shoot the Ghostbusters? Whatever. My other one is I was okay
the
with
entire sequence where Kristen Wiig dives into the X-dimensional portal to save Melissa McCarthy is unnecessary and stupid.
No, that was a payoff to her abandoning
not
her
a payoff
in their relationship. Yes, it is. Can I
if
actually
they maintained any sort of interpersonal conflict following that first opening 15 minutes, then sure, I'd agree with you. But no, they start working together, and all of a sudden they're best friends again.
I wouldn't call them best friends.
Best friends.
They're not best friends. She had
They're
more
best friends.
Kristen Wiig had more interactions with Kate McKinnon. Even at the end of the movie, she's hugging Patty.
I don't care.
No, but I was gonna say, if you force me to say one bad thing about this movie, I will say this: I was okay with the cameos and fan service up to this point. The point at which they do the exchange, where, as I said during my synopsis, well, what form would you like me to take? All right, now you're ham-fisting, you're forcing a Stay Puft Marshmallow bit into this movie that didn't need to be there. That whole bit where from the point that they rescue Kevin to the point where they figure out they got to shoot the car in order to turn it into the trap was nonsense. And it was ham-fisted, and it didn't need to be in the script. And it was literally only there because they sat around going, we need to recreate the Stay Puft Marshmallow thing. We don't want to do the exact same thing.
Well, sure, we've recreated everything else up to this point and done a bunch of pandering to people who liked the original.
So, and choosing the logo was very lazy. One of the things that make the Stay Puft Marshman, who saw that coming? But to do the logo, I thought was gay. It's just like, we've run out of ideas, folks. There was no negative.
The people at Sony sat around and said, we've run out of ideas, let's remake Ghostbusters. This movie is devoid of originality to begin with.
I enjoyed it.
Mark, you can like the movie. That's fine. There is nothing original here.
No, it's not a whole lot of original in Hollywood, my friend. Have you seen our
I'm aware of that as well.
It's not about criticism, in my opinion. That's the world we live in.
It's a valid criticism when it's this derivative.
Okay. Can you take a deep breath, take a shot of absinthe, and let's move this podcast on?
No, I have two more things.
Okay.
One, the CGI is terrible. Now, at least they came up with a quasi-valid excuse for it to be terrible.
Wait, Robert Winfrey hates the CGI, everyone. Take a drink.
Hang on. At least they came up with a quasi-valid excuse for it to be terrible. So I'll give the smallest modicum of credit to the people, because you're dealing with something that is, extra-dimensional and metaphysical. So, okay, it looks different. Sure, it still looks like crap. But it's supposed to look like crap. And I suppose that removes it from degrees of it doesn't look real. Well, it's not supposed to. Well, it still looks like shit. The 3D is god awful.
Oh God, you paid to see it in 3D?
No. Why on earth would I do that? But it's so painfully obvious what sequences they shoehorned in there just so the 3D audience could do the stereotypical ooh and pull back from the screen, which I bet no one did anyway because it's so freaking obvious.
I did.
It's still terrible.
I did when the first ecto projectile scene happens on Kristen Wiig, and I saw it in 3D. I actually saw it in 3D IMAX the first time. So I'm that guy. I don't know how it looks on the regular screen, but in the IMAX 3D, she converts from the pretty lady to the monster, and her head takes up the entire screen, and the vomit comes right at you. It's gross.
No, it's not. It's images on a screen.
It's my subjective opinion. It was gross. It was gross to look at. It was gross.
It is not gross. It's not even gross to look at. It's green
to
slime.
You, to you.
Green slime grosses you out.
I don't know. Get it? That was a callback to You Can't Do That on Television. Did you ever see that show?
No.
Oh. Damn it.
You mentioned the fan service and cameos and crap like that. I hated every one of them.
I thought the Dan Aykroyd one was funny.
I would give you Aykroyd in the sense that he plays the stereotypical New York cabbie who has seen so much of the crap that goes on in the world that none of it phases him anymore.
He was dressed as the ghost cabbie from the first movie.
Again, I'm prepared to acknowledge that Aykroyd's brief time on screen is not terribly offensive. Bill Murray serves no purpose in this movie. I
Sure he
don't
does.
know how much. No, he doesn't.
He's the gateway to them seeing the mayor.
No, the mayor was coming anyway.
When the ghost throws him out of the window.
They show up as he's being thrown out of the window anyway. They do not. The two are not related.
No, they showed up after. The police are investigating why he's dead, and then Homeland Security shows up after the fact.
They would have shown up anyway.
You need him.
The police would not have shown up. Homeland would have, because at that point they've suddenly discovered the internet and are looking at them and decide that that's another thing that bothers me. You're getting famous. No, they're not. They have one incident. They're not famous. You don't need to tell them to knock it off. Their own giving attention to things like that is what causes it to grow. They had not yet reached a point. I mean, at least in the original, when the mayor called them in to consult, they had established a business and a presence within the city that justifies that.
They called them in after the trap incident. That's the only reason why they go see the mayor.
Still, the point being, they've gone out of their way to establish that these people exist within this world over a prolonged period of time.
And no, in many ways, it's similar. They went into this concert, a million people, not a million.
500 people saw them, and the internet roundly dismissed them once again. But oh no, these people, unlike every other hack job with a camcorder, we have to pay attention to.
Well, that's the world we live in, sir.
No, that's crappy screenwriting. That's another thing that bothered me about this movie.
Here we go.
Hang on. Now, this one I feel there's two things. First of all, again, the Bill Murray character in this is not necessary. You could have easily had the president of Colombia, I think Charles Dance played him, show back up and proceed to continue to dismiss, officially terminate Kristen Wiig, and have him in a display of, no, you're delusional, open the canister himself and bring about his own demise. And you wouldn't have had to pay Bill Murray, who did not want to be there.
Or make Bill Murray the dean.
Okay, the character Bill Murray plays in this version is not necessary. Had he been the dean, the discussion shifts. I'm really at a loss as to what they're exactly doing in this movie in terms of their setup. The original, they go out of their way to make a point about, okay, we've been fired from our university. Let's set up a business. And there, the jokes about Dan Aykroyd getting a third mortgage on his house, which still make me laugh. Because seriously, $95,000 over 3 years in just interest. Yeah, the point is they go out and then you see them struggling with their, again, small business in a niche market that no one else is going to take seriously. And with them, it's just like, well, we need a space for our workshop. Okay, what are we doing?
They were.
Well, we're ghost busting. Well, okay, but how are you going about it? What are you doing? Well, the script demands that we bust ghosts.
No,
hang on. Here's how to make it better. Here's how to make it better.
Hang on, I'll give you that opportunity, but at least get it right. When they're fired from the whatever technical school they work that Melissa McCarthy worked at, she says, "Hey guys, we can really do this. We can successfully trap a ghost and study it. I think we should do that." She says it right there in the movie.
Yeah, but again, part of it is to what end, and part of it is what process are you going about doing this through.
I'll give you there's not enough.
Now, again, here's how you can make this better. Instead of having them set up a small business like they do in the original, have them attempt to independently fund a scientific research. And now look, there's no hilarity to be had in this movie, but there should be comedic opportunities with these three nutcases actually trying to fill out grant applications or swindle money out of rich people who have nothing better to do with their money than spend it on crap like this.
Yeah. And now as you say this, I'm like, they should have had a Kickstarter.
Sure. Any of that. And actually, again, establish what we're doing. We're not a small business necessarily. We're an independently funded scientific think tank. And
I don't think Paul Feig's that smart. I'm going to be you for a second and be overly negative. I don't think Paul Feig's that smart. That's a good idea. That's a good idea. But I honestly think he's like, you know what? We don't need to waste time getting the details about the structure of their business. People get it. They're the Ghostbusters. Let's just move on.
Sure, the script says they must bust ghosts, so who cares how we get there?
Got to get the kids to the mall, baby.
Yeah, but this is more like instead of driving there, we're going to airdrop them without parachutes.
Okay.
I complained about the product placement. I complained about the CGI. Their villain is the single most uninspired, uninteresting, underwritten, poorly acted entity put to film in the last 3 years.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot positive to say about him. I mean, I get him. I got the motivation. I liked the fact they had a villain, and I liked what the villain was doing. But his actual portrayal was the people who were involved in creating this script and shooting this movie going, boy, howdy, do we hate men who enjoy science fiction and fantasy.
I know. Hey, this is our fan base. Let's spend the totality of this movie destroying them on screen.
Well, you know, the year of the woman, Robert Winfrey.
I don't care.
Actually,
This has very little to do with that and everything to do with A, not understanding your audience, and B, poor screenwriting.
Sony does display a tone deafness.
Sony is full of giant sacks of crap somehow given sentience. Barely capable of sapient thought.
Sir, do you know how to read a clock?
Yeah, I do. I mentioned all of the cameos and fan service that comes across. It's this weird dichotomy of being insulting and pleading at the same time.
They all could have said no.
You liked this and you liked these people in the first movie, so here we're going to throw Bill Murray out a window. And please, these are things you liked about the first movie, so please, this movie can't actually be that bad. It is.
Well, as far as the actors in the movie, look, I don't think you can make Bill Murray do anything that he doesn't want to do. On some level, he accepted that part and agreed it was a good enough part to do, and so he did it.
They paid him enough to sit down on screen, and he said, sure, I'll take your money.
He doesn't need the money. He didn't need to be in this. He could have said no.
He might have been contractually obligated.
I'm not entirely sure if he was.
Just as a thought. I'm not sure, but I'm just saying he might have.
I think like he initially owned part of the property and was like bought out basically because he kept saying no to to these projects, but he was saying no at the last minute.
Look, Bill, I'm blaming you for this now. You should have kept your percentage and still said no to this one a hell of a lot earlier.
But my point is to sit there and whine, oh, all the cameos, oh this, oh that. These people showed up to set. They agreed to be in the movie. At some point, it's on the actors making those choices, and you can't just entirely blame the production crew, and the scriptwriter of putting it. If they decide they want to make Dan Aykroyd a naked clown, and Dan Aykroyd agrees to it, well, fucking blame Dan Aykroyd then.
I blame both. I blame them both in equal parts for this. I blame the structure of the movie for being so poor that throwing cameos left and right in is the only way they can attempt to engender some form of either emotional connection with their audience or give the crowd something to actually care about. And all of the actors except the one who played Janine I'm going to get mad at because you've all done relatively well for yourselves financially over the years, and you should not have lent even the appearance of credibility to this film that your appearance on camera actually does.
What was the last thing Dan Aykroyd was in that anyone would care about?
Honestly, I don't know, but he's transitioned away from acting and does a lot more of the producing side of things at this point in his life, and they don't have to worry about hits or misses necessarily. They get paid flat rates.
I was just looking at, just as an actor, I mean, look, and I was mentioning this to somebody else. I said, there comes a point where as an actor, you want to be seen. You want to be acknowledged. You don't want to be invisible. There's an ego attached to being an actor. It has to be there or you won't be successful. And I'm telling you, there comes a point where I think he took the part because, it's 2016 and who the fuck knows who Dan Aykroyd is.
He took the part because he has a producer credit on this thing and is terribly biased into wanting it to succeed. He
could have just been a producer and said no. Well, this isn't slavery. These people could have said, I don't need to be in this.
I really wish they had.
So his last couple of films, okay? He was the 1982 championship MC in Pixels last year. In 2014, Legends of Oz, Dorothy's Return, he did the voice of the Scarecrow. He was in Tammy, and he was in Get On.
Dan, what are you doing?
In 2012, he was in The Campaign as Wade Mach and The Ultimate Sacrifice as the narrator. 2010, he was Yogi Bear. He was the voice. In 2008, he was in War Incorporated. And I'm going to stop with 2007. He was Captain Phineas Tucker, and I now pronounce you Chuck and Larry. Yeah, Dan Aykroyd has a ton of integrity to stand on this point. This was not good enough for him. Fuck that.
Well, A, it wasn't, and B, I don't know how he got so intrinsically mixed up with Sony, but I imagine he wishes every night for the ability to go back and bitch slap his younger self and say, no, these are bad people, stay away from them.
Okay, I'm pleading with you. I'm begging you. I'm on my knees. Can we move this on?
Sure, in brief summation. Don't go see this movie. Don't spend $1 on it at Redbox.
Can I have the last word?
No.
Since you said don't go see this movie, can I make my plea? Can we have a shared podcast?
I acquiesce only on the moral grounds that you've treated me well enough in the past that I will overlook this infraction.
This movie's forgettable. I mean, this doesn't, and this is a good transition to what we're going to talk about. This didn't warrant any of the fervor, any of the controversy that came out of it. It certainly doesn't warrant the treatment of the actors that came out of it. Go see it if you're like me and you like fun, light, stupid entertainment. No.
Do not lump this in with fun, light, stupid entertainment. That's an insult to fun, light, stupid entertainment. I enjoy
your
fun, light,
opinion,
stupid entertainment.
This is my final word. Thank you very much. And I'm going to regard.
I'm begging on behalf of that entire set of cinema not to insult it. Bad things will happen.
The other thing I would tell you is if you have an experience like mine where you have a young daughter who is looking for a fun action type role model.
As long as she is not over the age of 9, because otherwise you're going to have to explain to this poor child that fart joke.
I'll let you have that one. Fun, light entertainment.
A family in the theater I saw this in walked out after that.
Good. Okay. Nobody walked out, and there were plenty of families that I saw it at. So that saw it with me. If you have it for the third time, if you have a child, you have a little girl, it's a fun movie, and they can take some of the more intense sequences. It's fun to take them to this movie and let them see something that they don't necessarily get to see a lot in movies, which is, women having, fun action, heroic sequences. My daughter got a kick out of it. Like I said, she's 5. If you have a similar situation in your home, there's nothing overly offensive or any reason not to go see it. It's a fun movie if you turn your brain off and just allow yourself to enjoy the pretty colors.
Gah. Even with your qualifiers, I can't agree with that sentiment.
I'm not asking you to, sir. I'm speaking to the people.
Okay, let me close with this.
Oh, God.
A plea. No. This is somewhat related to one of your points, and I think it bears being acknowledged. To some enterprising screenwriter out there, I'm begging you to write a fun, entertaining female action lead for a movie that is not R-rated. Because none of these women qualify as funny. None of them qualify as interesting. But because the only legitimate kick-ass female action characters appear in movies you can't necessarily show to girls who are 5 to 10, this is what they get. And that's on you, the creators, for not doing a better job. So I'm begging all of you, do a better job.
Look, this is why we don't generally review comedies, by the way. See what happens? You have somebody who has, on this very podcast, said comedy is a very subjective thing, speaking like he is the absolute tyrant authority on comedy, saying this is, by and large, not funny. I decree it's not funny, and so far it is not funny, and therefore it is not funny.
Okay, allow me to rephrase, given the subjective nature of comedy. I found this unfunny.
There we go.
Everyone in the theater I saw this with found it unfunny, apparently. I have not seen a review or interacted with a single person, either in life or online, apart from Mark Radulich, who thought this movie was funny.
Oh, you're going to get it when we get to the Rotten Tomato reviews.
What? You mean those pandering sycophants who decide that, well, I can't say anything bad about this because I'll get blasted?
Every review is bought and paid for. I know. Not a single one.
No. Hang on. I didn't say bought and paid for, and certainly not all of them. For some reason, when it comes to the critical analysis of this movie, there is a massive undercurrent of two things. One, trying to piss off all the trolls who decided they were going to hate this thing months ago, and I can appreciate not liking trolls as much as the next guy, but you've already then completely taken your credibility and thrown it out the window by engaging them on that level. And two, this bizarre fear that their criticism might be misconstrued as misogyny. I don't give a flying crap about the gender or race of anyone in this movie. The movie sucks.
That's you, and it's not bizarre, considering it happens. But can we actually talk about that now? We have 31 minutes of live time left.
No, hang on. Let's briefly talk about the money in this thing, because we do, and I think it needs to be talked about very briefly. That Sony's going to lose money on this and not care because they're so desperate for not only successful movies, but to get in on the shared cinematic universe trend that everyone's trying to bandwagon hop onto, that they're going to take this and make it their little baby.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, money,
Dollar, dollar.
So, if I can speak for a moment.
Go ahead.
If I could just get a word in edgewise.
Sorry, I kind of went off the rails there. Go ahead.
Someone bring Robert Winfrey a cold beverage. Not alcohol. A cold beverage. Maybe
I got water right here, and I'll take a swig of it for all the poor working men who had to sit through this piece of crap. Come on, I'm mixing in a shot at Steve Austin with that. You have to appreciate that on some level.
You are painful tonight. You do.
Sorry.
You are like gas. Painful gas. All right, Ghostbusters.
This was the single most unenjoyable experience I've had in a theater in the last 3 years. Yeah, I'm going to take it out on this show. Sorry.
Hey, did you see this movie? Because for the past 90 minutes, I haven't been made clear about that. It's a bit vague. Bit vague. You're a little understated. Are you? Fuck sake, we know.
I'm just not sure I've adequately expressed just how the degree to which I didn't enjoy this movie.
Couldn't hear you. Jesus.
Sorry. All right. No, I'm done with that. We're on to the finances, and then I get to yell at critics. So, okay. The money. This thing couldn't. Yes. The fact that this thing couldn't oust The Secret Life of Pets in its second week out just makes me laugh.
So, Ghostbusters 2016, production budget $144 million. They're estimating that there's another $100 million spent in advertising, bringing this thing to almost 200. Let's round up and go $250 million. This thing needed to make $500 million to really break even and to justify in a sane world any kind of sequels. Made as of this writing, as of this podcast, domestic $57 million and foreign $18 million for a worldwide cum of $75 million. Now here's where things get a little weird. If you look at the analysis, they're going by two metrics. They're looking at whether or not the thing is going to have legs, and they're using comparisons to other Melissa McCarthy movies. So if it does as well as
hang on, that's their metric.
Yes, they are.
I'm sorry.
I've read through all this stuff.
Hilarious.
So they're looking at the last half a dozen Melissa McCarthy movies: Spy, The Heat, Bridesmaid, which was also a Kristen Wiig joint, Tammy, and I can't remember the other one. So they're looking at all those.
They're all
movies,
terrible. And
they're not the point. And they're looking at the multipliers. Some had higher multipliers than others, and each one of those, they were low budget. They made multiple times their budget and were considered huge successes. This is why this woman continues to get work. The problem with Ghostbusters is that this is the first huge budget movie that she's been a part of, and it's only if the multipliers are on par with her other movies that this thing even has a chance of breaking even. So far, and here's the other problem. If Ghostbusters had a clean slate, let's say they had put this movie out at the end of August, early September, when nothing is coming out. I mean, we're not even reviewing almost anything in the month of September. It's a dead month. We were jokingly calling it the new February, the month where movies go to die. If they had done it that way, it would have at least had a couple of weeks of, well, there's nothing else in the theater. It would have had something of a The Martian going for it, where there was nothing else in theater that was any good, so people just kept going to go see The Martian. If that were the case with Ghostbusters and it had no competition, basically,
that's also known as the Titanic syndrome, by the way.
This might have higher multipliers. It might have greater legs. It might actually get to where it needs to go in order for it to have sequels in a sane world. I'm going to tell you why I keep saying it that way in just a moment. However, it's got to compete this week. It had to compete in its first weekend with The Secret Life of Pets, and it got killed. It was in its
second week, and it lost. I can't tell you how much I laughed at that. Come on, you and I, we at least expected it to win the weekend. I knew it was. I mean, look, you liked it, and you were probably always going to like it, and that's fine. I don't mean that as an insult, because I didn't like it and was probably never going to like it, and that's as much of an insult to me as the reverse is to you in that case. I think we both at least expected it to win its opening weekend, didn't we?
Yes. It's got Star Trek, which is almost certified fresh, by the way.
90-some-odd%, right?
Yeah, right now it's got a higher Rotten Tomatoes percentage than fucking Civil War did. You know, it might win the summer in terms of critical blockbusters.
We'll see about that next week.
So it's got Star Trek this weekend, which all the critics love, and is supposed to be tracking well. It's got Jason Bourne the following week, which, okay, there you're going to have a split between something you can take your kids to and something you can't take your kids to. But then if you can take your kids to something, you might take them to The Secret Life of Pets anyway, or Finding Dory, which is on its way to making $1 billion. After Jason Bourne, I believe is Suicide Squad, which is amazingly, that's tracking at $125 million opening. That's gonna win. That might possibly win the summer. Outside of
really ought to tell you how bad the summer's been in terms of box office receipts.
So you've got Star Trek, Bourne, and then Suicide Squad. You're like, okay, at this point, there's no room to breathe. The competition's too heavy. And then once it gets past Suicide Squad, it's got Pete's Dragon. Once again, it's now it's in direct competition with yet another kids movie. I think the following week is War Dogs. I don't know when Ben-Hur comes out, but my point is, it's got stiff competition for the next month. It's already moving kind of slow in terms of ticket sales. It's not looking good. But here's why I say none of that matters. And as I posted on my Facebook page, we're getting more of these no matter what. They projected opening weekend $40 to $50 million. Its opening weekend, it made 46. So they're spitting that as a win. Sony lost Spider-Man back to Marvel. Now, they still have, I think, distribution rights to it. But basically, the big cinematic universe they planned with Spider-Man fell to pieces.
Thankfully.
I don't remember what else they have in as far as intellectual property, what else they've got left that they can mine. But there isn't much, and that is why Ghostbusters got remade in the first place. There was no interest at Sony in remaking Ghostbusters, which is why we never got a Ghostbusters 3 proper. We got a video game instead. There was no interest in remaking Ghostbusters or doing a third Ghostbusters movie at Sony until the Marvel thing happened. Once the Marvel Cinematic Universe became a thing in a $1 billion moneymaker.
Multi-billion dollar at this point.
Yeah. That's when all these studios started going back into their intellectual properties and going, fuck, what can we create what can we create a cinematic universe with? What can we create franchises with? That seems to be the only way to make any money. And Sony dusted off Ghostbusters, and here we are.
Which is sad because it's not. There are plenty of studios making money on non-interconnected universes.
With that being said, they've now invested way too much money in Ghostbusters. They overspent on this one, but Ghostbusters, 3/Ghostbusters 2016 has been in production hell for like a decade. So you figure if you're Sony at this point and you're gonna take a bath on this movie, it might not take a huge bath, but you're taking a bath. They're gonna make up for it in Blu-ray sales. They're gonna make up for it in toys and T-shirts. Look at Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as an example. That movie bombed this summer. But both my kids have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle T-shirts. The toys are still selling. The cartoon is still out there. Kids still like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's not going anywhere. That's going to get another sequel. Ghostbusters.
Well, plus Platinum Dunes is, it's nothing more than an excuse for Michael Bay to continue corrupting cinema with his crap. They're a fundamentally intelligently run production company that spends as little as possible making the movies to minimize their risk, and then generally makes a hefty profit on them. They don't make good movies, mind you, but they are generally profitable movies.
So while Out of the Shadows didn't necessarily draw at the theater, it'll, again, Blu-rays, toys, T-shirts, whatever.
Okay, what is it that Sony owns for this? Is it Columbia Pictures or the Village Roadshow Pictures?
Columbia.
Okay, hang on. I need to double check how they've been doing lately, I suppose.
So with not a whole lot left to mine, Ghostbusters is going to get a sequel. They've set it up with Zool. There was rumor out there that they were going to do a girls' Ghostbusters, a guys' Ghostbusters with Channing Tatum and Chris Pine. No, not Chris Pine.
Oh, God, thank you for not doing that.
Channing Tatum and what's his futz from Guardians of the Galaxy?
Chris Pratt?
Chris Pratt. Ivan Reitman now says that was never really a thing. But they are building towards Gozer, is the rumor. That the next movie, the main villain's going to be Zool, and then in the third movie, you're going to have Gozer as the main villain. They set that up in the end sequence. Spoilers. They set that up in the end sequence with this movie, the end credits. They're already talking about like a Slimer cartoon. This isn't going anywhere. If you actually look at like the list of Ghostbusters properties, they've got cartoons in the works. They're rebooting the cartoon. There are going to be more movies, folks. If you're one of those people and you happen to be listening to this podcast and you're like, no, Ghostbusters, you've ruined my life, you've ruined my childhood, please just bury this thing. Fuck Melissa McCarthy. Fuck that gorilla Leslie Jones. Fuck all these people. Fuck that fag Paul Feig. All these people, just kill them. You're not getting your way. You are being resoundingly ignored. This movie is
to which I
launching a
can
franchise.
only say to all of you people out there, shame on you for giving it that much attention. You want this to go away? And here's a big secret for all of you. You want this to go away? Ignore it.
Just thinking of the critic again.
Well, that stands, but my point about that, I don't like the new Ghostbusters. I don't like the new cartoon. Fine. Don't watch. Don't buy. Don't encourage your children to watch. Don't let them watch. I beg of you. It's going to be terrible. Don't spend money on this. I regret the $5 I wasted on this thing.
Hey, Robert, did you like it?
Yeah. I mean, clearly this whole thing's been shtick up to this point. Allow me to express my true emotional feelings about this. This is the greatest comedy since Monty Python and the Holy Grail. This will be required cinematic viewing for the younger generation for decades to come and hoist it up as the pinnacle of comedic cinematic achievement. No! Vomited a little.
I'm just saying you mentioned it a few times. You didn't like the movie.
My point being, if you don't care for this, that's fine. Don't spend anything on it, and don't talk about it. Don't complain on the internet. Don't flame. Don't troll. Don't engage in that level of asinine stupidity. You want properties like this to go away. You want marketing to go away. You want movies to go away. The Simpsons have a nice little ditty about this from a Treehouse of Horror episode sung by Paul Anka. It's cleverly entitled, Just Don't Look.
How do you want to handle this?
How do I want to handle what?
Because we're running awfully low on time here. We have 16 minutes
Okay,
left.
I need to mock Columbia Pictures very briefly for 2016.
Please do.
Because they have released so far this year The Fifth Wave, which bombed, Risen, which was okay, but biblical, Christian dramas are usually going to do okay as long as your production budget is small enough and you're not exposed. Your risk is minimized. Grimsby, which was sorry, what was that?
Let's do this in order, okay? The Fifth Wave bombed.
The Fifth Wave.
Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies, which we covered, and it's got all kinds of.
No, that's Green Gems. That wasn't Columbia.
When I click Columbia on Box Office Mojo, or Sony rather. Okay, I under Sony Columbia, that's what came up.
Okay, and so Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, which was meh. What comes after that? I have Risen after that. Do you have something else?
Hang on. Okay, this is what I got. Fifth Wave, Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies, The Mermaid, which actually did well. The China movie from China. The Brothers Grimm, which you already said. Miracle from
Grimsby.
Heaven, nobody thought. Money
Grimsby
Monster.
was such a massive bomb. I'm not entirely sure it's appropriately quantifiable.
Money Monster, which we reviewed earlier this year and gave Robert Winfrey a headache. The Angry Birds
Nothing
movie.
in that movie works that way.
The Angry Birds movie, which I think is still somewhere in the top 10 of some list. The Shallows, which actually did well.
I am only interested in The Shallows if I know the shark wins.
Jesus.
Okay, what do you got after that?
Ghostbusters.
Which they're going to take a bath on. And the only things they have coming out next, they have a crappy comedy opening opposite Pete's Dragon called Sausage Party, predominantly featuring Seth Rogen, Jonah Hill, and James Franco. So please, none of you go see that. Those guys are terrible. Then we have the Magnificent Seven remake, which I imagine the lion's share of the money is actually going to MGM. And I'm not sure about that one. I mean, I think we're reviewing it, but...
Yeah, because you asked to review it.
Well, it's a remake of two classic movies. Well, it's a remake of a classic movie that's a remake of a classic movie. And I kind of want to yell about it if it's terrible, because I have things to say about the remake trend that I think that movie will typify and allow me to adequately express. Then you have Inferno, which might do okay.
People like Dan Brown.
It's true. And then you have a sci-fi romance movie called Passengers at the end of December. It's there to die, because you have that bizarre kind of sci-fi tweener movie, The Space Between Us, and the Assassin's Creed movie opening the same day. Along with Patriots Day, who people who like Mark Wahlberg will see, because I don't know. I don't get Mark Wahlberg's appeal.
It's not going to matter because Star Wars will have a new movie out December 16th.
Yeah, this is coming out the week after that.
Yeah, no one's seeing it.
Yeah. They're taking a bath on pretty much everything this year.
Not a well-run studio. So I could talk forever about how, it doesn't, after all that's been said and done, and this is where I'm going to do my slow clap. Congratulations, Internet. Nothing you did. Your one major victory was you drove Leslie Jones off of Twitter. Melissa McCarthy will still continue to get work. Kristen Wiig will continue to get work. Leslie Jones will continue to get work. Kate McKinnon will continue to get work. There are more Ghostbusters movies with this cast coming. There's nothing any of you can do about it. It is
the only thing you can do about it is to ignore it, and you're not doing it. Morons.
All right. We really don't have time to get into as much as I would have liked to get into how we got to this place. Just a short history was basically this. A small group of morons who hate women freaked when they decided to do the all-female cast. But things got exponentially worse when they released the trailer. And
because it's a terrible trailer, and they all felt justified. Because if there's anything the internet needs, it's a sense of self-entitlement based on actual evidence.
I don't think people wanted this. Here's the thing. I don't know if anything would have worked other than Dan Aykroyd, the ghost of Harold Ramis, and Bill Murray coming back. I think people had a very narrow view of what a new Ghostbusters movie should be. In the realm of how could they have...
and here's the sad thing about that. I'll grant you...
Hang on.
Sorry. Go ahead. I apologize. Go ahead.
I think the one thing I will say, and I thought about this before I saw the movie, I was actually well prepared to walk in there and hate it, to be honest with you. And I had thought about what I would have done if they had said, hey, we want to do an all girls Ghostbusters movie, but we'd like to do it without irritating half the planet. What are your ideas? I would have kept it in the same universe. I would have had Melissa McCarthy sort of be, pursuing her uncle Ray Stance's work and him having buried it. And I think my story would have been something, I would have taken advantage of the fact that Harold Ramis is dead and said that, late into their years as Ghostbusters, he died on one of the missions and the whole thing sort of fell apart. Bill Murray went away with Dana. The whole thing just sort of went to pieces. and there's a degree of guilt over Egon having died in the middle of one of their, for the lack of a better word, one of their missions. But having the Abby Yates character still be obsessed with all of this and feel like it has meaning and it needs to happen again, and letting there be that sort of conflict between Dan Aykroyd and her, and let the movie sort of evolve out of that, out of her need to resurrect the Ghostbusters and his resistance to it, and then being won over, and then saying, okay, well, if you're going to do this, then let me guide you. And then you have a Kate McKinnon character inheriting the equipment that's been in mothballs and saying, hey, I can improve upon this, and we can still get those gadget scenes, and just building, have the actual Leslie Jones character be related to Winston Zeddemore, and just have it be a passing of the torch. I think that's what it should have been. And even if you don't like that idea exactly the way I'm pitching it, I still think you probably could have saved some face had this been a passing of the torch from the first Ghostbusters to this group of women. They didn't all have to be related. Kristen Wiig could have still been the same character, but still drawn in from wherever she was in life, and that would have been fine. I think there were elements of the screenplay that you could have worked into a passing of the torch movie. The fact that they just decided, hey, we're going to let Paul Feig do his own thing. We're going to first say that this is in its own universe where the Ghostbusters never existed, and then say 30 years ago there were Ghostbusters made no fucking sense to me at all. So some of the anger that people had towards this, I get. Creating a villain that basically apes the people making the criticisms, not a wise idea. But there were some choices that were made that, had they gone with something a bit more respectable, I think might have saved it. In some cases, no one was ever going to be happy. The moment this didn't have the original cast in it, there were some people that they were never going to pacify. But I think reasonable people would have given it a chance had they made some different decisions.
Well, I think reasonable people still did. You and I are both reasonable people.
The other thing, so you had we're going to do our own thing. That annoyed people. We're going to put all women in it. That annoyed the people who hate women. Then the trailer came out, and it was partially, hey, this trailer is terrible. Hey, we hate this movie. Hey, remember us? We hated the idea of this movie in the first place. Well, we're going to try to sabotage.
I think it was Gavin Napier who linked the Red Letter Media Half in the Bag review of this movie, which I watched. Have you seen it yet? Because the line one of them says about, do you think the guy who put together this trailer just has it out for Sony? Because, look, set the movie aside. The Ghostbusters trailers are terrible.
They don't.
Regardless of enjoyment of the movie, those are terrible trailers.
Yeah, they did not put the focus in the right place. So then, I don't.
And then your remake of the song is just so awful. It should be glared at people who are barricaded with hostages. You want to get them to come out? Blare that, and this is a legitimate tactic, mind you, for people who are barricaded. You set up loudspeakers and you blast noise at them.
Last thing I'm going to say about this, because once I think the trailer thing hit and there was a purposeful attempt to downgrade the trailer and make it the worst watched on YouTube or whatever the phraseology goes, the hatred towards this movie took on a life of its own, and it became a thing to hate the movie. And I think that's where I lose my patience with people, people on the internet, people in general, where hatred is a hobby. Why?
Hey, for some of us, it's a lifestyle.
Just the idea that you own this property, the idea that, and those of you who by remaking Ghostbusters think your childhood was ruined, need to get lives. I don't know what changes in your life you have to make, and I don't want to say even sarcastically, go jump in a river or something like that. But you do need to reevaluate your life. Look, I had the same childhood as a lot of you. It is what it is. It's my past. And whether or not a movie I liked as a kid gets made or remade or shat upon or shot into space doesn't change the past. It still is what it is. I have a very fond memory of my father taking me and my buddy Ramsey, my buddy Farrow, rather. He had a brother named Ramsey. Long story. Farrow and Ramsey, two kids I grew up with. But my father took me and one of those kids to the movies. I remember walking in just as Ray says, get her, to the library goes and turns into a monster. And I remember my father was buying tickets at the time, and we walked ahead of him and walked in the theater, get her, roar, and me and this black kid go running out of the theater again, like, oh God, I remember that as a kid. I remember that the few things that me and my dad got to do together just one-on-one that didn't involve my mom was go to the movies. And Ghostbusters is one of like a handful that I remember vividly being taken to. Well, I have a great love for this movie. Again, something I'll talk about tomorrow on Long Road to Ruin. It's one of my favorites, despite all my criticisms. It's still one of the movies I quote the most. And I don't care if it gets remade. Life goes on. This isn't if you care this much about a movie being remade, you need to reevaluate what's important in your life. And you're probably making terrible decisions. That's all I'm going to say about that.
I agree with your sentiment.
I can understand a rolling of the eyes, a bit miffed, but to generate this much energy and negativity towards something, seek therapy. So
my therapist agrees with you.
So 2 minutes left of live airtime and an undetermined amount of time left in Overrun for me to try to give Robert Winfrey some sort of an aneurysm. Are you ready?
Let me say, hang on. Before we get started with this, I have read some criticism. I don't know what Mark has lined up. The critical analysis of what I have seen and read that I agree with the most comes from Richard Roper as it pertains to this movie. And that's just where I've landed as far as that goes. So, with that in mind...
What was it?
What, his analysis?
Yeah.
Oh, that it was... And I dislike his use of the word unfunny because, again, humor is subjective, but I believe the science of humor does not bear up there is science to humor, mind you, and there's very little of that in this movie. He criticized the acting, which I agree with, elements of the writing, and he said the CGI was cheesy, which is the best way I can describe it.
Okay. All right, sir. You know what to do.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Gary Dowell of Dark Horizon says, it's still a fun ride, thanks largely to casting.
No.
You got to keep your answers short here, okay?
Hence the just parade of sad no's.
Good. Moving on. Allison Johnson of the Cambridge Day says, Paul Feig is becoming one of the most interesting comedy directors today.
Piss off. This is the man responsible for crap like The Heat and Spy. You have no credibility.
Zach Middleton of Willamette Week. It's glorious, and if it ruined your childhood, sorry, bro.
Yeah, you're attempting to troll trolls. You're pathetic.
Gasper Zimmerman of Clarin, says this reboot hits almost the same good notes as the original 1984 classic. Full review in Spanish.
No, this movie hits the same beats because it's a remake. The notes are sour.
James Kendrick, Q Network Film Desk. The new Ghostbusters are frequently very funny, although the movie as a whole is never quite as funny as you think it will be.
God, no, this is not a frequently funny movie. This is a frequently cringe-worthy movie. And it was exactly as funny as I expected it to be, but if you think Melissa McCarthy is funny, you may have had a bit of a piano dropped on your head when she's this flat.
Robert Roten of the Laramie Movie Scope. As far as a remake of a beloved comedy, it is pretty good. We need good comedies in these times of hate and strife. There are a few good comedies now being made. This is one of them.
That can't be a serious sentence. There is no way that individual looked at this movie and said, A, this is a good comedy, and B, if you're attempting to orchestrate this into a grander point about we need less hate and strife in the world, you picked the dirt worst film to plant your flag in to make that point, sir.
So remember I was talking about sequels earlier? Paul Whittington of the Irish Independent says, it's the fine script. It's the fine script that runs out of steam, but by the time it does, Wig & Co. have won you over and left you thinking that a sequel to this thing might not be entirely offensive.
This is not a fine script. We discussed this earlier. Whether you like this movie or not, and reasonable people can disagree because, again, comedy, the script is terrible. It consists of large portions that are blocked out by Paul Feig, who says, do stuff. This is not a written script. This movie, and I've meant to mention this earlier, I'll say it now, this does not feel like a fleshed out movie. This feels like a crappy SNL sketch meant to poke fun at Ghostbusters. That's what the entirety of this movie feels like.
Fiona Williams of SBS.com, Australia. A relatable action comedy, told you. A relatable action comedy that pays affectionate homage to its source material.
No, this is not relatable. Let's start off right there. Nothing about this movie. To be fair, nothing about the original is relatable. It's not supposed to be. It's not an action comedy. There's one action sequence, and it's woefully out of place.
Okay, you're going to want to brace yourself for this.
I am appropriately braced.
Mike McGranagan of the Aisle Seat. Ghostbusters has hilarious performances, superb effects, a killer soundtrack, phenomenal 3D, and sharp jokes. Put all those things together and they add up to 116 minutes of great Ghostbusting fun. This movie is a blast.
Okay. We have now found the idiot doppelganger, my opposite number. This moron exists purely to counterbalance my sense of reality. Nothing he said is defensible.
What do you mean? You don't like the killer soundtrack?
Mark?
I'm not afraid.
Mark, I accept that you disagree with me on this point. I acknowledge your perspective, and I respect your opinion. You're a friend. I like working with you. I enjoy our discussions about this and various other topics. If you ever, even in jest, attempt to justify or defend the blaring nonsense that emanates from the speakers over this film, I might have to fly to Florida, fish up a large marlin, wield it by its swordy nose, and strike you with it repeatedly.
You want to know what else he rated?
Sure. Let's descend into that particular pit of hell.
Hang on. I wasn't prepared for this. Okay. Well, he agrees with the tomato meter 77% of the time. His favorite films are the Brothers McMullen, JFK, Fletch, Do the Right Thing, Chasing Amy, Fargo, The Blair Witch Project. He writes for Aisle Seat and Film Racket, and he is part of the Broadcast Film Critics Association and Online Film Critics Society. Let's see here. He gave Ghostbusters 3.5 out of 4 stars.
Idiot.
The Secret Life of Pets 3.5 out of 4 stars.
Overrated.
Legend of Tarzan 2 out of 4.
About right.
Independence Day Resurgence 1 out of 4.
About right.
Finding Dory 3.5 out of 4.
Man, how can he be this wrong just once?
Popstar 3.5 out of 4.
Okay, twice.
Turtles 3 out of 4.
Okay, we have now found. It turns out that the ones he got right were the statistical anomaly.
Apocalypse 2 out of 4. Angry Birds 3 out of 4.
Come on, really? Really?
Money Monster 3 out of 4.
Oh, son of a.
Okay. The Huntsman Winter's War 2 out of 4.
I think that's about where we landed, wasn't it?
Yeah, something like that. All right, I'm not going to go through this anymore.
This individual is a blight on society and criticism. I really need, for moments like this, that insult from Billy Madison. We are all... That is one of the dumbest things I have ever heard. Everyone in this room is now actually dumber for having listened to you. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Leonard Maltin of Leonard Maltin's Picks. A Ghostbuster team worth calling. This one's a comedic win.
Look, because you were so drunk when you saw this at 3:30 in the morning that you laughed does not make it a comedic hit.
Let's see. McCarthy, Wig, and co. remain game throughout, but you end up feeling more for them than you do for their characters.
No, they signed up for this. It's all on them.
Marcy Cook, the Mary Sue, says the Ghostbusters surpassed my expectations in every way. It was funny throughout, well-paced, with no huge downsizing. Sony has a hit on its hands.
Okay. I will accept your first sentence there about it exceeding expectations if you expected a boom mic to constantly be in sequence and for Paul Feig's voice giving direction to actually be heard in the final product. Other than that, no.
Jay Olson, you're going to love this one, especially because of what we discussed previously. Jay Olson of Cinema Mixtape, the year's biggest crowd pleaser, and the spiritual sequel to Ivan Reitman's Ghostbusters that diehards have longed for since 1984, whether they'll admit it or not.
No one has longed for this movie under any context, with the possible exception of... With the exception of Sony executives desperate to cash in on this fad of interconnected properties. No one. No one.
Okay, this one actually got 2 out of 4 stars, and I don't know if he meant it as a, and I don't know if he meant this as a rotten thing, but if it came up on the rotten scale. Christian Toto of HollywoodInToto.com. Ghostbusters is the remake our culture richly deserves. Please take a few minutes and discuss that with the world. Ghostbusters is the remake our culture richly deserves.
Well, we don't deserve nice things, so I suppose I can agree with that sentiment.
All right, if that one doesn't get your goat, let me find another one for you because I need to take a quick break here.
Let's make this the last one then, and we'll...
All right, then. Willy Waffle of WaffleMovies.com. I think Wig has let all of the comic genius talk go to her head.
Who? Wait. Hold the... Stop. Back things up just a second. Who has ever called Kristen Wiig a comedic genius? Has anyone?
Know.
Have you heard? I've never even seen that sentiment. I mean, look, I'll accept the fact that reasonable people can laugh at different things. That's fine. If you think Kristen Wiig is funny, I don't, but sure. I can live and let live. I'm not going to harass you over your comedic sensibilities. Genius? In no way is Kristen Wiig a comedic genius. And no one, I've never heard that phrase uttered about her until Mark read me that just now. Because, look, if you think she's funny, fine. Enjoy. Laugh. Sure. Don't justify it to me. Don't expect me to agree with it, but I'm not gonna beat you up over it. Really? Genius? Are we devaluing that word to the point where it now applies to anyone with the ability to get on screen? It's just wrong on so many levels. It's I don't know what to do anymore. Oh, that just hurts. I will agree with this. And look, if anyone has been filling either her or McCarthy's head with that nonsense that they are comedically bulletproof and they can just parade around on screen and improv for 116 minutes and the masses will flock to them and laugh and heap praise and joy upon them and accolades and money, then yeah, they've let it go to their heads and they're producing crap like this. But I don't know. I don't know anymore. I need a Farnsworth. I don't want to live on this planet anymore.
What's his face? The Patton Oswalt tells a story about a teacher in college, and as he's talking about how this teacher hated him and his whole class, the way that he talks about it is much like that Farnsworth thing, where he's like, I don't want to live on this planet with you anymore. I'm going to go home and open a vein. It's funny the way Patton Oswalt says it. Okay. Steve Crum, VideoReviewMaster.com. There are enough plot variations and new inclusions to satisfy diehard fans of the original franchise.
No!
Nope.
No!
No. Would I abide by that?
No. Shame on you. Bad reviewer, return your paycheck and go sit in a corner.
Oh, God.
Plot
Sean Burns.
in this. Get out.
Sean Burns, Splice personality. Faye's girl power Ghostbusters was forged in a crucible of man-baby cyberbullying, and it wears a chip on its shoulder proudly.
Okay. Let's stop for just 1 minute here. Let us acknowledge that there is, yes, a massive amount of backlash to this movie that is disproportionate to how bad it is. It's a crap movie. But to hear people talk about it, you'd think they were airing a snuff film. And that's just not right. I do not care about the social climate into which your movie was released. Your movie is good or bad on its own merits. This is a bad movie, and if you are allowing the fact that this is an all-female cast to kind of color how you perceive it, you're throwing objectivity and credibility out the window in favor of either pissing off trolls or placating your masters.
You're going to love this.
I could use some love in my life, Mark. Please.
Well, maybe you should go find this girl who writes for Slate magazine. Her name is Dana Stevens. She's a top critic. And she says, Robert Winfrey, these women are having fun, just being together. and getting to don matching jumpsuits and wail on undead spirits. And their evident joy makes us happy to hop in the hearse for a ride along.
Okay. I suppose you also spend your time ruminating about what a plus sign smells like. Look, did the cast have a grand old time making this movie? Sure. I imagine they did. Do you get a sense of camaraderie on screen from them? Sure. Even though there's supposed to be angst and personal tension between two of them, and one of them has no logical reason for being there, sure. None of that makes the audience feel better about this or should make you feel good about paying to see this movie.
Here, I found another potential bride for you. Sarah Stewart.
Boy. Matchmaker Rattlich in the house.
Sarah Stewart, New York Post, top critic, Robert Winfrey. Know that she is a well-respected critic and gets paid to write what she's about to write. Melissa McCarthy, Kristen Wiig, Kate McKinnon, and Leslie Jones make a formidable comic team in their own right, though McKinnon steals the show as oddball physics geek Holtzman. The Egon, if you will.
And you get... Son of a... Okay, hang on. I'm not going to yell. Not going to yell. I'm going to very calmly and very plainly tell you why you are wrong. I assume the only reason you reached this conclusion was someone explained to you that in the first movie, Egon was the more practical scientist opposed to the other two. And you just naturally reached the conclusion that since McCarthy and Wiig do nothing scientific for the totality of this film, she's the Egon. Because anyone with a reasonably functional brain who has actually seen the first movie and absorbed the comedic genius that is the deadpan, head in the clouds Egon of Harold Ramis would never, ever, under any rational circumstances, compare goofy, crazy hair, wild-eyed, mugging for the camera Kate McKinnon to Harold Ramis' Egon.
Look, I love Kate McKinnon in this. I could watch this movie again just for her scenes. She's not Egon. That's the most ridiculous comparison I've ever heard.
You are wrong, wrong, wrong. You should be
Neil
ashamed
Pond
of yourself.
Neil Pond of Parade magazine says, confronts its critics head-on with freewheeling 2016 girl power.
No, this does not confront its critics head-on. This insinuates snarky bits of dialogue about don't listen to the internet into it. That is not confronting your critics head-on. You wish to confront the criticism of this movie head-on, make a good movie. And you failed miserably in that regard.
Matt Neal, The Standard. It's good. Take that, haters. 4 out of 5 stars.
It's not good. All you're doing is attempting to provoke the internet for clicks. You have not actually done your job.
Cam Williams of Beret News, and he spells laugh, L-A-F-F, by the way. A laugh a minute.
Yes, because we're just rolling with the intellectual and cinematic greats here.
A laugh a minute female empowerment fantasy, far funnier than the original, 4 out of 4 stars. Look, I said I liked this more than the original because of the plot elements and screenplay structure. It's not funnier than the original.
That individual is so wrong on every conceivable level. It's not even worth discussing. How can you be that wrong? 2 plus 2 does not equal shoes, sir.
Alyssa Wilkinson of Christianity Today. Let's take a moment for a tribute to McKinnon. Not only is she channeling Christopher Lloyd's Doc Brown throughout, the glasses, the hair, the whole thing, but her random asides makes the whole movie.
Well, if by her random asides are the only moderately amusing bits of corn in this pile of fecal matter, sure, I accept your analysis. I also agree that she is much more channeling Christopher Lloyd as Dr. Emmett Brown than she is Harold Ramis as Egon.
Peter Travers of Rolling Stone, top critic. Angry nerds, take note. The ladies are the best thing about this franchise reboot. Kate McKinnon is a spontaneous eruption of hellfire hilarity. Yay for alliteration.
Yay for alliteration, and I've just got to point this out. You do realize the director should have reined her in several notches at more than one point, right? But no. We can't possibly actually criticize the director. Look, my dislike of this movie is neither irrational nor sinks to the level of blind hatred. I saw it. I didn't like it. I've explained why. This notion that you can dismiss valid criticism under the auspices of hating is sad.
Steve Rhea of Philadelphia Inquirer, top critic. Girl power, ghoul power. It's a winning combination. He got paid
to write that. What are we doing, Mark? What are we as a society doing?
Amy Nicholson of MTV, and she just made an appearance on Screen Junkies Movie Fights. They did classic movie fights, hosted by Alicia Malone. Amy Nicholson was there. She competed, and she says, "A middle finger to the screaming bro babies," which she spelled with a Z. If girls can't be Ghostbusters, then here guys can't do anything.
Okay. Real fast. What are you hoping to gain from this? You typed that out. You actually sat there and typed that out. Why are you attempting to turn your movie review into a social commentary? If you wish to write social commentary, write social commentary. It'll still be crap, but at least you won't be misleading people as to what you're trying to do.
Sean O'Hara, Salon.com, top critic. A goofy, free-floating romp with an anarchic spirit of its own. A fresh set of scares and laughs, again spelt with 2 F's.
Why? Why are you employing people who willfully misspell the most basic of words? Do you not understand the importance of the written language to history?
Not done yet. Not done.
I don't. If you willfully misspell a word, do you understand that years from now, people will look back on the written history of the English language, and there will be contention over how to spell the word laugh, in large part because of morons like you. You have made the future worse.
Laugh, spelled Laffs, and a moderate dose of girl power. A lot of girl power in these reviews. That is unlikely to seem confrontational to anyone beyond the most confirmed basement-dwelling Gamergate troll. Let me read the whole thing again. I want to make sure you got it all.
I heard it.
Take a breath. Nope. Here we go. A goofy, free-floating romp with an anarchic spirit of its own, a fresh set of scares and laughs, and a moderate dose of girl power that is unlikely to seem confrontational to anyone beyond the most confirmed basement-dwelling Gamergate troll.
Okay. No, there are at least 2 different points when this movie goes out of its way to be confrontational about people spewing hate before actually seeing the movie. On the one hand, I understand you should reserve degrees of hatred for a film until you have actually seen it. On the other, why, in God's name, are you attempting to insulate your opinion and your perspective on this film from proper critical analysis by set by claiming that, well, if you don't like this movie, you must conform to all these stereotypes.
Chris Bumbre of Jobo's Movie Emporium.
Why is it that for some reason it is assumed that to dislike this movie is to somehow cast a wide... The fact that I hated this movie from the bottom of my stomach, which promptly left my body after viewing, mind you, as an attempt to purge myself. The fact that because I hated this movie on its own merits, this somehow means I hate women? I mean, how does that does not follow. There's no logic there. You just don't want to hear that your movie sucks and are pretending that because I think it does, that says something greater about my personal character.
Chris,
that's mine anyway.
Chris Bumbrays of Jobo's
Thank
Movie Emporium. An unexpected summer highlight. Probably the best all-around blockbuster since Captain America Civil War. And I'm ducking. I'm ducking.
I'm not even going to address that. That is so wrong on so many levels. On so many levels.
We're going to end this on one of my favorite reviewers to highlight for you, and it's only because of geographical proximity. Sean P. Means of Salt Lake Tribune. This Ghostbusters isn't going to ruin anyone's childhood. Quite the opposite. A new generation of kids, girls included this time, are about to learn that busting ghosts is the best job in the world. 4 out of 4 stars.
Okay, I will agree with him only in the sense that no, it's not going to ruin your childhood. Your childhood is in the past. Unless you have somehow mastered the art of time travel, you fundamentally can't ruin your childhood. If you had a terrible childhood, fine. If you had a great childhood, fine. You can't actually impact that from your current state because time is linear from our perspective. The rest of it is just wrong.
So this has been fun.
You want to know something crazy? I anticipate having this relatively the same discussion next week.
Alex Ledbetter, what culture? Who are you going to call? These guys, actually.
I'm going to call my therapist after this to talk me down off a ledge. You people.
Joseph Wall, Sin of You, a quick-witted and visually spectacular bonanza.
Shut up. It is neither quick-witted nor visually spectacular. I'm not entirely sure it even qualifies as a bonanza.
Fred Topol, We Live Entertainment, the movie of the summer.
We've got to get to plugs because we're going to get cut off in the next 2 minutes one way or the other.
I'm done. I'll be good.
My sanity can only take so much. All right, again, don't go see this movie. That's the only way it's going to stop.
Go see it twice. Take children.
Mark saw it twice. He brought his daughter to one. That's 3 of you out there who should never see this movie. Do not support this in any way, shape, form, or fashion at any point for the totality of your existence, and we will all be better off for it.
Wait. This new A-team of Ghostbusters are fresh and funny enough to have earned space in the summer comedy firmament.
No. No one's going to remember this movie in 4 months.
Just keep going. Don't pay any attention to me.
All right. This Saturday evening, I will have live coverage of UFC on Fox 20 in the MMA Zone of 411mania.com. Stop by, say hello. I appreciate it. Tomorrow evening, The Long Road to Ruin highlights the Ghostbusters trilogy. That's both movies and the video game. That's going to be Mark and Sean. Tune in. That's a good time. Mark and I are back next week, and we'll be reviewing Star Trek Beyond, which I kind of anticipate disliking, despite the general trends of things so far. But I might be wrong, and we'll see how that goes when we get around to it. Mark and I are our own people. We look at what other people do, say, we take in the stimulus ourselves, and arrive at our own conclusions. So it'll be interesting. And then I think we're back the week after that. I forget with what, though, but I'll tell you next week when we get around to it.
No, I'll tell you. Okay, next week is Star Trek Beyond. The week after that is Jason Bourne.
Oh,
and the
yeah.
week after
Matt Damon on the movie.
and the week after that is Suicide Squad. Currently tracking at a $125 million opening, baby.
Yeah, because God, I hate stereotyping like this, but a bunch of horny teenagers want to see Margot Robbie prance around as Harley Quinn.
I want to see her prance around as Harley Quinn.
I don't get the appeal of Margot Robbie, but go ahead, say it, Mark.
I think she's
Say
hot.
it. No, say it. You know you want to.
You're a robot?
Thank
Oh,
you.
no, I'm not. Oh, okay. I thought you were queuing me up to make a gay joke, and I wasn't doing that this time either. No. There's too many jerks out there waiting to take pot shots at me whenever I have some jovial fun with you. So no gay jokes will be had today, sir.
All right. If you feel like you don't wish to make gay jokes, I'm okay. I don't care. I'm secure in my own sexuality, and if you get a laugh out of it and other people do, what? Fine. I don't care.
I'll call you.
I'm more than happy to no-sell them and simply explain why you're wrong in a flat, static voice.
Iowa by Slipknot voted greatest album of the 21st century by Metal Hammer Readers.
Now you're just trying to annoy me.
I'm going to repost that.
Anyway, Suicide Squad ought to be interesting because I think that movie's going to be a tad dissociative identity disorder.
I think it'll be a fun time had at the movies.
Yeah, that's the line you tried to pitch at me that got me to see this. You're not tracking well with telling me that it will be a fun time at the movies.
Whatever. Your answer to fix it.
Your history as it pertains to ascertaining what I consider fun is quite. You're not batting 1,000 here, Mark.
No, I don't think I'm ever going to pitch you anything that you're going to find fun, except maybe reading the dictionary. Get it? Because you're a nerd. But I'm not calling you a nerd. Because somebody out there might take a shot at me because I was being mean to you. So I'm just saying.
No, but you are. You want to know something funny about that? This is not a joke. This is not shtick. This is true story from the anecdote of my life. When I was in junior high and high school, I lived without television access. Not rabbit ears, not cable, not satellite, none of that. So I read a lot. So I had a relatively expansive vocabulary, especially compared to my contemporaries, who I don't want to say were knuckle draggers. There were some very nice people there. There were some very intelligent people there, some of whom were smarter than I am and still are to this day. But as a general rule, I knew words, I knew their meanings, I knew how to use them appropriately in sentences. And at some point, as apparently people do, I was not aware this was a cultural thing. If someone understands wordplay, they are accused of reading the dictionary. I was on a regular basis, at which point I kind of internally went, screw it, said, yeah, I don't have television, so I read the dictionary. Now, my sense of humor, even at the time, was so flat and deadpan that I don't think they understood I was attempting to make a joke, and they believed me.
Kirsten Dunst is going to direct The Bell Jar, starring Dakota Fanning.
I don't care. But my point there, Mark, is I have not been accused of actually reading Webster's Unabridged Dictionary in 20 years. 20,
oh, really?
15 to 16. 16 years of my life I have gone without that particular accusation being leveled at me, and I appreciate you dredging it up.
All right. Hammer of Doom, we just did the Death Angel, one of the best albums of the year. Really shocked me, actually, how good it was. Next week, excuse me, Jesus. Next week, we'll be doing our show on Thursday because I will be at a concert on Tuesday. I got a fun week ahead of me. Going to go see Batman and Killing Joke on Monday. Going to see Gwen Stefani on Tuesday. I'm going to be...
Not Gwen Stefani.
I got that.
Never.
Taking my kids to go see Gwen Stefani on Tuesday. We got Star Trek on Wednesday, and then the Metal Hammer of Doom will be on Thursday. We'll be looking at the new Witherscape album, The Northern Sanctuary. The following week, we'll be back on Tuesday, and we'll be looking at the new Neil Fallon of Clutch side project, Dunsmuir. And Long Road to Ruin will be following our Jason Bourne review with a Long Road to Ruin, the Bourne trilogy. That's all for now. That's all I got before I choke to death here. Let me just say this as we depart the show before Blog Talk mysteriously cuts us off. I am so glad to be done with this subject. Tomorrow, after Long Road,
Yeah.
not for nothing. As much as I enjoy doing Long Road to Ruin and looking at old films and sort of looking and sort of tearing them apart and listening to Sean talk about the history, the production side of these things, I'll be a lot happier when the show's over. And I don't have to hear the words fucking Ghostbusters again until the next sequel. And hopefully when the next new one comes out, people will have given up on this and have moved on to something else. Because not since Batman v Superman and the controversy that erupted over that movie have I wanted to completely stop doing podcasts, delete my Facebook, delete my Twitter, and leave the internet entirely. That's how far this has driven me. That's how mad I am at the people in this world who felt the need to drive Leslie Jones off Twitter by being racist.
Twitter's a pretty terrible place anyway. I mean, I use it because it's quick access to information, but it's a terrible place. Honestly, if I were an actor, there's a God's honest truth. If I was an actor and I was not Dwayne Johnson, I would just stay off of Twitter.
No, yeah, absolutely. If this podcast ever gets famous, I may have to quit Twitter. But it's unfreaking believable. And I said that to somebody yesterday on Facebook. I said, there's been a couple of times now I've come close to deleting my Slog Talk Radio account and just never podcasting again because it didn't seem like talking to the internet was a worthwhile thing. And I got back and please don't. We really enjoy your shows. So let me say this.
Wait, someone's listening to this?
Believe it or not. I like
Wow.
Robert. I like Robert Cooper. I like Jesse Starcher. I like Sean Comer. I like all the people who do these shows independently and with me. And I enjoy talking about music and movies. And that's the only reason why I keep this going. Because if it were a matter of wanting to engage with people on the internet outside of the small circle of friends that I've created through the Blog Talk, through the Rattlage and Broadcasting Network, I'd fucking close this thing down. You're all not worth it. You're terrible people.
Mark, it's the internet. I don't call it the personification of the id for nothing.
And on that happy note.
You work in the mental health field. You should know that talking to anyone's id is a waste of time on many levels. If there's people out there that listen to this show that, get some entertainment value out of it, that maybe get some edification out of it, maybe, take our advice every now and then, or, just use us. Yeah, I mean, look, if our discussions are what put your cranky 2-year-old to sleep, I don't care. First of all, I am so grateful you found something that puts your cranky 2-year-old to sleep. When you find that, it doesn't matter what it is. You thank God you found it.
Hang on, don't get me wrong. I treasure the people who listen to this podcast and come back week after week. My point was the people who took up arms to take down a movie. If you're one and the same, I don't really know what to say. I hope not. But I would like to think those are two different camps of people. And the camp that attempted to take and failed to take down Ghostbusters, I wish there was a way to not deal with those people anymore. Unfortunately, if you engage at all in social media, there's almost no escaping it. And I think that's the part that bothers me the most.
Look, I don't care if people listen. I do this show because I enjoy doing this show with Mark. If there's people out there listening, God bless you. And thank you for investing in your time in my public meltdowns on occasion.
All right. I'm going to hit the music.
All right. Yeah, we're back next week for Star Trek Beyond, where they blow up the Enterprise again. Surprise, because they always blow up the Enterprise. Doesn't mean anything if you do it in every movie.
Which they do. All right.
But yeah, Mark, please, if you ever feel that bad again about doing this, let me know. I apologize for the occasional contributions I have made to your negative experience with stuff like that.
Okay. It's okay. I forgive you, Robert Winfrey. I forgive you, my son. And with that said, we do this not for the love, but for the money.
Which we don't make.